The galaxy was full of strange and dangerous worlds, but there was one that every species feared the most. Its name was Thalassia 9, a world of endless water. From space it looked beautiful, a perfect blue sphere covered entirely by oceans. But every alien who had ever gone there never returned. For centuries, Thalassia 9 was called the drowning world. Its storms were constant. Its waves were higher than towers. Beneath its dark waters, unknown creatures moved silently. Many civilizations had sent ships, submarines, and probes. All had vanished. No signals, no survivors, just silence. Across the stars, this planet became a legend. Some believed it was cursed. Others said an ancient monster lived below the surface. No one wanted to find out the truth, no one except the humans. Far away on a massive space station, alien leaders gathered in a grand chamber. Giant screens showed live feeds of Thalassia 9. The waves rolled and crashed, storms covered the sky, lightning flashed like angry gods. "They are really going," one alien commander whispered. His skin turned pale with fear. "Yes," another replied. "Humans have sent their fleet. They call it Operation Deep Blue." "Fools," hissed a third. "No species survives there. Not even machines last long. The oceans eat everything." The alien council watched the screen as a group of human starships approached the planet. The ships were built for both space and water. Sleek, strong, with reinforced hulls to fight the storm. Most alien species would never risk this, but humans were not like others. They had crossed fire worlds, frozen planets, and deadly jungles. To them, danger was not a wall. It was a challenge. Aboard the human flagship Endeavour, Commander Elena Ortiz stood before her crew. She looked at the massive ocean planet through the viewing window. Dark clouds covered the surface. Lightning flashed in the distance. "This is it," she said. "Thalassia 9. Every probe and drone we sent was destroyed. Every alien fleet that tried before us was lost. But we're not them. We adapt, we endure, we dive in." Her crew nodded firmly. They were explorers, soldiers, and scientists. Some were nervous, but their eyes showed determination. Elena gave the order. "Prepare descent." From orbit, the human ships entered the thick atmosphere. Immediately, violent winds struck their hulls. The sky turned dark. Storms roared like living beasts. The ships shook but held strong. Alien observers, watching through distant telescopes and satellite links, expected the humans to turn back. No one had ever made it through the storm layer alive, but the human ships continued. They pushed forward, adjusting their flight in real time, fighting every gust, every bolt of lightning. Their technology wasn't magic, and it was resilient. And their pilots were calm under pressure, altitude dropping, storm intensity increasing. One pilot reported. "Hold steady," Elena ordered. After what felt like hours, the ships broke through the clouds. For the first time in centuries, living eyes saw the surface of Thalassia 9. It was a wild and beautiful nightmare. Endless dark blue waves stretched to the horizon. Massive whirlpools twisted like black holes in water. Lightning cracked across the sky. It was alive, untamed, and terrifying. The alien council rooms across the galaxy fell silent. None of their probes had ever reached this point. What they were witnessing was historic. "They made it through the storm," one alien whispered. "Impossible," another muttered. But humans were not done yet. The first landing platform separated from the flagship and descended toward the waves. It wasn't a traditional landing ship. It was a floating fortress, designed to deploy anchors into the sea and stay stable in extreme conditions. As it hit the water, the waves slammed against its sides like a beast testing a new challenger. The structure rocked violently, but held. "Platform secured," the crew announced. Around the landing site, small drones flew out scanning the water. The readings were strange. The ocean was far deeper than any alien record. There was movement beneath the surface. "Something big. Multiple contacts," a technician said. "Something is down there, watching us." Commander Elena stared at the dark waters. She didn't flinch. "Let them watch," she said. "We're not leaving." On the alien homeworlds, fear spread. Ancient legends spoke of sea creatures the size of cities, guardians of the deep swallowing entire fleets in a single wave. No alien dared to disturb them again after the early disasters, but here were the humans, building bases, sending divers, deploying machines, as if they had no fear of the deep. For the aliens, water was death. For humans, it was home. They had swum in oceans, crossed seas, and built ships long before they reached the stars. Where aliens saw monsters, humans saw a challenge waiting to be conquered. Hours passed. Human engineers worked in brutal weather, connecting floating platforms into a growing ocean base. Their voices echoed through storm winds, steady and calm. Meanwhile, under the waves, something stirred. Giant shapes moved slowly in the dark. Sonar pings returned strange echoes. "Something's coming," the sonar operator said. On the command deck, Elena watched the readings. Her face was calm, but her heart beat faster. Then suddenly a massive ripple broke the surface. The waves rose like a wall. Something huge was moving beneath the fleet. "Contact. It's right under us." Alien council chambers across the galaxy erupted in panic. "It's the creature. They are doomed." But the humans didn't flee. They tightened their grips, focused their scanners, and prepared to face whatever was rising. The water bulged upward like a mountain. The sky darkened. A deep rumbling sound echoed from the depths. A sound no living being had heard for centuries. Something was coming. The sea shook as if something ancient had awakened. Waves crashed against the human floating base, rising higher and stronger with every minute. Alarms echoed across the decks, but no one panicked. The crew had trained for this moment. Commander Elena stood on the command platform, looking over the violent ocean. Her raincoat whipped in the wind. The water swirled and churned below like a living creature. Lightning streaked across the sky, flashing light over the faces of the crew. "Sonar reports movement again," the technician called out. "It's circling us." Slowly, Elena narrowed her eyes. "Stay calm. Keep scanning. Let's see what we're dealing with." The Alien Council's observation ships hovered far above the planet, relaying the feed back to hundreds of star systems. Billions of alien eyes were fixed on the humans. No one had ever stayed this long on Thalassia 9's surface. According to their records, disaster always came within the first hour. Yet the humans had already built the foundation of a base. Beneath the waves, sonar images showed shadows larger than any submarine. They moved in smooth patterns as if intelligent. The crew whispered among themselves, unsure if these shapes were animals, machines, or something else entirely. Elena listened carefully to every sonar ping. She knew something was watching them, waiting. But fear wasn't useful here. She focused on what humans did best, adapting fast. Several miles from the base, a small team deployed in an exploration vessel. It was a sleek, pressure-resistant sub designed for deep-sea missions. The team of 3, Lieutenant Harris, marine biologist Dr. Leon, and engineer Marco, prepared for their first dive. "This is madness," Harris said with a nervous laugh. "First day here and we're already going under." Dr. Leon smiled faintly. "If we wait too long, the ocean will make the first move. Better to meet it on our terms." The sub slowly descended into the dark waters. Sunlight disappeared quickly, replaced by endless blackness. Strange glowing particles floated past the windows like stars trapped underwater. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. "This is beautiful," Marco whispered. "It's also dangerous," Leon replied softly. "Keep your sensors on maximum. This is uncharted territory." Up on the surface, Elena watched the sub's live feed. The Alien Council observers leaned forward. Some were convinced the humans wouldn't survive this dive. Others were curious, even secretly impressed. Then the sonar picked up a signal. Something enormous was approaching the sub from below. Inside the sub, the lights flickered. A low rumble vibrated through the hull. "Did you feel that?" Harris said. Marco checked the instruments. "Something's rising from beneath us. It's huge." Dr. Leon stared at the dark water outside the window. For a moment, nothing moved. Then a pair of glowing blue shapes appeared in the distance. At first, they thought it was light reflecting off minerals, but then the lights blinked like eyes. "Back to surface?" Harris asked quickly. Leon shook her head. "No, keep steady. We need data." The creature's shape slowly came into view. It was unlike anything seen before. Its body was serpentine and massive, with long fin-like structures that glided through the water like wings. Its mouth was lined with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed rhythmically. It moved closer, circling the sub, studying it. For a tense moment, the team thought it might attack, but it didn't. It simply watched them as if curious. On the human command deck, Elena leaned closer to the screen. "It's intelligent," she murmured. "It's not striking, it's observing us." Alien leaders were in shock. Every past expedition that entered these waters had been destroyed instantly. But this time the creature held back. Perhaps it has never seen humans before, an alien analyst suggested on their end. Perhaps it hesitates. The sub sent out a sonar pulse. The creature responded with its own, deep echoing tones that shook the vessel. It was like a conversation. "This is incredible," Leon whispered. "It's communicating." Suddenly, the creature accelerated upward. The water exploded around the surface near the human base as it broke through, creating a huge wave that rocked the floating platforms. Crew members held onto rails, alarms sounded, but the base remained intact. Everyone stared as the massive creature leapt partly out of the water, twisting like a living storm, then vanished back beneath the waves. Elena turned to her officers. "Mark that location. We'll study it later. For now, resume base expansion. We've just been introduced." Hours passed and the humans worked tirelessly. They connected more floating modules, secured energy collectors, and launched additional exploration drones. The storm didn't let up, but their structures held firm. They learned quickly how to use the current patterns to stabilize their platforms. Meanwhile, the Alien Council broadcast the footage across their networks. Species who once mocked humanity now watched in silence. They saw humans diving where no one dared, building in storms that crushed alien ships, and facing creatures that made entire fleets vanish. The galaxy had seen humans fight wars, survive frozen wastelands and cross deserts, but this was different. This was humanity meeting a world that every other species had abandoned, and they were thriving. Night fell on Thalassia 9. The storms calmed for a brief moment. On the observation deck, Elena stood alone, staring at the dark horizon. Lightning flickered in the distance. Somewhere below, the creature swam silently. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "You're not our enemy, are you? You're just waiting to see what we'll do." She didn't know the creature's thoughts, but she felt something strange in her gut, a sense that this was only the beginning. Deep below, the creature returned to a place where no light reached. It swam through massive underwater structures, ruins of an ancient civilization long forgotten. Glowing symbols covered the stone walls. It let out a deep call that echoed through the ocean, a call that other massive shapes answered. The humans on the surface didn't hear it, but something in the ocean had awakened. Back on the surface, Harris, Leon, and Marco climbed out of the sub. They were soaked, exhausted, but their eyes shone with excitement. "We saw it," Harris told Elena. "It was like nothing else. It didn't attack, it talked to us." Elena nodded slowly. "Good, that means we're not intruders. We're guests. Let's make sure we act like it, until we understand this world better." The crew returned to their stations. The lights of the floating base glowed softly against the night waves. From above, it looked like a small cluster of stars resting on the dark ocean. Billions watched across the galaxy. No one had ever stayed this long on Thalassia 9 and lived. No one had ever made contact with its guardians. But humans had done both on their first day. Something was changing. The water world that had once been a symbol of fear was now witnessing something new. The ocean was no longer silent, and humanity was not going anywhere. The days passed, and the human base grew larger. Floating structures stretched across the stormy waters like steel islands, connected by bridges and support towers. Giant turbines collected power from the waves while deep-sea cables disappeared into the darkness below. What was once a single landing platform had turned into a living outpost, alive with lights and activity. Aliens across the galaxy watched every step. For generations, no one had dared to stay on Thalassia 9 for more than a few hours. Yet the humans had not only survived but continued to build, as if the violent planet was just another frontier. Beneath the waves, however, something had started to change. The creature that circled them on the first day had not returned alone. The sonar operators began to pick up more signals, multiple shapes moving in complex patterns deep below. It was like the ocean itself was stirring after a long sleep. Commander Elena stood at the control center, reviewing the sonar feeds. Her face remained calm, but the tension in the room was clear. The readings showed massive shadows gathering near the ruins far beneath the surface. "We're seeing more movement every hour," the sonar chief reported. "It's like they're organizing, Elena repeated. "Yes, Commander, not random patterns, coordinated like a group." Elena turned to her science team. "Any theories?" Dr. Leon, who had led the first dive, stepped forward. "I think our presence has triggered something. We found ruins down there. If this was once home to an ancient civilization, maybe the creatures were part of it, or maybe they took over after it was abandoned. Either way, they know we're here now, and they're paying attention. The decision was made to send another team deeper than before. This time 2 advanced subs would descend together, connected by encrypted communications. Their goal was to investigate the ruins directly. Lieutenant Harris, Dr. Leon, and Marco were joined by 2 new crew members, Commander Briggs, a seasoned deep-sea pilot, and Specialist Yara, a structural archaeologist. They knew the mission carried risk, but humans had always ventured where others turned back. As the subs slipped into the water, the ocean swallowed them whole. Sunlight vanished quickly, replaced by cold black emptiness. Their lights cut narrow beams through the darkness, revealing clouds of drifting plankton, jagged underwater canyons, and strange coral-like growths clinging to rocks. The deeper they went, the stronger the sonar pings became. Giant shapes were out there, moving slowly as if escorting or following them. It was impossible to tell if they were being watched out of curiosity or preparation. Depth 6,000 meters, Briggs announced calmly, pressure holding steady. Visibility low, then the ruins appeared. Massive stone structures rose from the seafloor, covered in glowing algae. Tower-like columns leaned against each other like the remains of a sunken city. Symbols carved into the walls emitted a faint blue light, pulsing like a heartbeat. Yara pressed her face closer to the glass. This is incredible. These structures are ancient. Look at the carvings, some kind of language, but nothing I've seen before. Marco scanned the energy readings. There's something active down here. The symbols are giving off a low-frequency signal. It's not just decoration. The team carefully navigated between the ruins, recording every detail. The Alien Council watched the feed with growing unease. Their ancestors had stories about this place, stories that always ended with destruction, yet the humans explored it as if it were a museum waiting to be understood. Without warning, the water around the subs darkened even more. The sonar operator gasped. Multiple large contacts incoming from below. The sub's lights caught glimpses of movement. A massive fin, a serpent-like tail, flashes of glowing patterns moving in circles. It's them, Harris whispered. The creatures surrounded the ruins, moving with coordinated precision. One of them, larger than the rest, rose slowly from a deep trench. Its body was scarred, ancient, and it carried itself like something that had ruled these waters for centuries. The smaller creatures parted as it approached, its glowing eyes fixed on the subs. The sonar pulses changed, deeper, louder, almost like a warning. Briggs tightened his grip on the controls. They don't like us being here. Leon leaned forward. Wait, listen, it's not attacking yet. It's communicating again. The sub sent a cautious sonar reply. The creature answered with a long, thunderous tone that rattled the hulls. The ruins themselves seemed to vibrate with the sound, as if the creature's voice was awakening something in the stones. Back on the surface, alarms rang across the base. Sonar showed a massive disturbance forming below. Elena watched the data streaming in. They're gathering around the ruins, the sonar chief said. Something big is happening down there. Recall the subs? An officer suggested. Elena shook her head. Not yet. I want to know what's causing this. If we run now, we'll never understand them. All across the Alien Council chambers, leaders debated what they were seeing. Some believed the humans were seconds away from being destroyed. Others whispered that something far older was awakening, something even the creatures might not fully control. Down below, the giant creature released a final booming sonar call. Cracks appeared in one of the massive stone structures. Sediment billowed out like smoke. The seafloor trembled. We need to move, Briggs warned. Wait, Yara said, eyes wide. Look at the symbols, they're glowing brighter. Whatever this place is, it's reacting to them. A sudden surge of water hit the subs, sending them spinning. The trench below erupted as if a volcano had awakened. From the darkness, another colossal shape emerged, larger than anything they'd seen before. Its glowing patterns were jagged, chaotic, and its movements were aggressive. It's not the same one, Leon said. This one's different, it's angry. The smaller creatures scattered. The ancient leader turned to face the newcomer, and the water shook as they released sonar blasts at each other. The subs were caught in the middle of what felt like a territorial war. Surface, we've got 2 massive entities down here, Briggs shouted. We're getting out now! The subs raced upward, engines roaring against the crushing pressure. The sonar pings behind them grew louder. like the sound of drums in a rising storm. On the surface, Elena watched their ascent. The sonar readings showed two titanic shapes battling below. For the first time, the humans had not just met the Guardians. They had awakened something older, something buried deep beneath the ruins. As the subs broke through the surface, waves rose like mountains. The crew stumbled out, pale and wide-eyed. "We saw it," Harris gasped. "Something was sleeping down there, and now it's awake." That night, the storms were different. They didn't follow the usual chaotic patterns. They moved in synchronized swirls as if controlled by something deep below. The alien observers whispered in fear. The humans stood on the decks watching the dark horizon. Elena's voice was calm but heavy. "We've stirred the abyss, and whatever lives down there, it knows we're here now." The surface of Thalassia 9 was no longer just wild. It felt alive. Storms gathered and moved in strange spirals, their winds and lightning forming deliberate patterns across the sky. The ocean waves rose and fell in rhythms that seemed unnatural, as if responding to some deep command. The base's weather sensors struggled to predict anything. Every hour, conditions shifted unpredictably, almost like the planet itself was watching and testing the humans who dared to stay. Commander Elena stood on the upper deck of the base as wind and mist whipped around her. The night was restless, the water below churning with hidden motion. Since the deep dive, sonar had detected constant activity in the ruins. Whatever had awakened was now fully awake. The creatures below moved in coordinated patterns around the seafloor structures. The larger two, locked in their silent underwater conflict, sent shockwaves through the ocean that even shook the floating platforms miles above. The Alien Council had issued warnings. Their transmissions filled the human channels with panicked voices urging retreat. Generations of alien explorers had died trying to tame this world. In their minds, staying was suicide. But the humans had no plans to leave. They had invested lives, technology, and purpose into this mission. Leaving now would mean admitting that the legends were stronger than their will. In the control room, technicians monitored sonar feeds. Blips moved like a school of giants under the waves. Energy readings from the ruins had doubled overnight. A strange pulse began to move through the water, deep, low, and regular like a heartbeat. "It's coming from the largest structure," Dr. Leon explained to Elena, pointing to the screen. "Whatever is down there is channeling energy. I think the ruins themselves are part of it." Elena watched the data carefully. "Can it affect us?" Marco, working at the engineering station, replied, "If it keeps growing, it might. Those pulses are strong enough to destabilize the base anchors. But more than that, it feels like a signal." "A call." As if to answer him, a sudden massive wave struck the side of the base. Alarms echoed through the corridors. Crew scrambled to secure systems, lock down equipment, and stabilize the floating modules. But unlike the first days, they were ready. Their structures held. The waves failed to throw them apart. Instead of breaking, the humans adjusted. This ability to adapt fascinated the alien observers. Every previous expedition would have fled, or been destroyed at this stage. But the humans kept upgrading, reinforcing, learning the rhythm of the sea like seasoned sailors. Some alien commentators began to call them storm riders. Others whispered that humanity might be the first species to truly stand against the will of Thalassia 9. Far below, the conflict between the two massive creatures escalated. Their sonar blasts grew louder, echoing up through the deep. Drones sent to observe caught glimpses of swirling shadows and flashes of glowing patterns colliding in the abyss. The older creature with the calm, steady light patterns seemed to be defending the ruins. The chaotic newcomer struck with ferocity, causing tremors along the ocean floor. The humans were caught between these forces. On one side, the deep ocean full of unknown intelligence. On the other, the Alien Council pressuring them to retreat. Elena held her ground. She knew turning away now would leave the mystery unsolved and perhaps allow something dangerous to rise unchecked. She ordered all teams to prepare defensive measures. Engineers deployed wave-stabilizing towers around the base. These tall, reinforced structures reached deep into the water, using advanced gyros and countercurrents to keep the platform stable. Submarines were equipped with pulse cannons, tools designed not to destroy but to redirect large underwater creatures. As night deepened, sonar picked up new signatures. Dozens of massive shapes began rising from the depths, converging on the human base. The smaller creatures that had once simply watched were now gathering. Their formation was too perfect to be random. "They're surrounding us," Harris said quietly. The alien observers watched in horror. To them, this was the moment all previous expeditions had met their end. But Elena didn't issue an evacuation order. Instead, she activated the external floodlights. Bright beams cut through the dark water, illuminating the swirling giants below. For the first time, the creatures could see the humans clearly, not as tiny shadows, but as beings who stood their ground in the storm. The oldest creature appeared at the edge of the illuminated zone. Its glowing pattern shifted slowly, almost like deliberate language. The others followed its lead, forming a ring around the base. It wasn't a random attack. It was a gathering. Leon stood beside Elena, watching the patterns carefully. "They're not charging. They're communicating. It looks like some kind of formation." Before they could interpret it fully, the water erupted at the far edge of the ring. The chaotic newcomer surged upward, breaking through the surface in a violent display of power. Water exploded into the air as its massive body coiled and struck at one of the wave-stabilizing towers. Metal screamed as the structure bent under the impact. Elena didn't hesitate. "All defensive units engage." Pulse cannons fired deep sonic blasts into the water. Instead of killing, the blasts created massive counterwaves that pushed the chaotic creature away from the tower. The older creature moved in behind it, releasing a deep resonant sound that shook the entire area. It wasn't aimed at the humans. It was aimed at the intruder. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. The humans and the older creature seemed to fight on the same side, both defending the same territory. Drones captured the scene from above. A chaotic storm, glowing underwater giants, and human structures holding steady against waves taller than skyscrapers. Across the galaxy, the alien council watched in stunned silence. No one had ever seen a species stand beside one of Thalassia IX's ancient guardians in combat. Humanity had turned what was supposed to be a death sentence into a standoff. The chaotic creature retreated below the waves after another exchange of sonic blasts. The water calmed slightly, but everyone knew this was only temporary. The pulse from the ruins continued, stronger than ever. Something deeper, more powerful, was still building below. On the deck, drenched in rain and mist, Elena stared into the black water. "We're not just visitors anymore," she said quietly. "We're part of this now." The crew gathered around her. Despite exhaustion, fear, and uncertainty, their eyes were steady. They weren't explorers anymore. They were defenders standing on the edge of something vast and ancient. Deep below, in the heart of the ruins, a hidden chamber began to glow with blinding light. The pulse shifted faster and louder. The ocean responded with rolling thunder that traveled for miles. The abyss had not just awakened. It was preparing for something, and humanity was right at the center of it. The storms grew louder with each passing hour. Lightning split the skies like veins of white fire, and the ocean roared as if something beneath it had claimed ownership of the world. The pulse from the ruins now echoed through the water and the air, a deep vibration that rattled tools, walls, and even the bones of the crew. Sleep became almost impossible. The rhythmic thrum was constant, like a heart beating somewhere in the abyss. Commander Elena stood in the control room, watching the sonar feed fill with movement. Dozens of the smaller creatures circled far below, like an army preparing for war. The older giant stayed near the ruins, its glowing pattern stable and deliberate, while the chaotic one moved closer each day, stirring the sea into madness. It was no longer a random predator. It was a threat. "We're running out of time," Marco said, adjusting the display. "If that thing keeps attacking the stabilizers, the base won't hold forever." Leon nodded. "The pulses are building toward something. It's like the ruins are waiting for a signal, or charging for something bigger." The Alien Council sent repeated messages urging immediate retreat. Their archives were filled with warnings about the awakening, an event that had wiped out fleets centuries ago. They believed this was the same event beginning again. To them, it was simple: flee or die. But the humans had a different view. If they left, whatever was awakening would still rise, perhaps unchecked. Staying meant danger, but it also meant control. Elena gathered her senior crew on the deck despite the heavy rain. The wind howled around them, but her voice cut through it with calm authority. "The chaotic creature isn't going to stop. The pulse is climbing. If we wait, we'll be crushed between both. So we hit first. We take control of the surface and the ruins. If this thing wants a fight, it's going to get one." Harris, drenched but grinning, nodded. "About time." They prepared their fleet. Submarines were refitted overnight with reinforced plating and additional sonic emitters. Wave riders, specialized hovercraft built to skim stormy waters, were armed with heavy stabilizers and EMP nets designed to disrupt the chaotic creature's energy patterns. Floating defense towers were repositioned in a ring, turning the base into a fortress on water. The alien observers watched in disbelief. No species had ever stood their ground on Thalassia 9 when the awakening began. The humans were not preparing to flee. They were preparing to fight the ocean itself. As dawn broke, a strange calm settled over the sea. The storms paused as if holding their breath. The pulse from below slowed, steady but powerful. It was the kind of silence that came before something terrible. Sonar picked up movement, fast, upward, and massive. The chaotic creature rose from the deep, trailing whirlpools behind it. Its glowing patterns flickered violently like a storm given form. As it neared the surface, the water exploded upward, and the sky turned black with clouds. "All units," Elena commanded, "hold the line." Submarines moved into position, forming a loose perimeter. Wave riders darted across the surface, riding the swells like insects on a lake, laying nets and pulse emitters. Defense towers locked onto the creature's massive shape as it broke through the surface with a roar that wasn't sound, but vibration, shaking the platforms to their core. The first sonic blasts fired. Invisible waves of pressure slammed into the creature, disrupting its glowing patterns and slowing its movements. It roared back, sending shockwaves that knocked several smaller crafts off balance, but the humans regrouped instantly, adjusting their formation. They had studied its attacks during earlier encounters. They moved like a single organism now, anticipating the surges and redirecting their fire. The creature struck one of the outer towers with its massive tail, tearing through steel like fabric. Sparks and water flew into the air. Harris led a squad in wave riders to flank its side, dropping EMP nets that crackled and wrapped around its fins. For the first time, the chaotic beast hesitated, thrashing violently but caught in the human's trap. Beneath them, the older creature emerged from the deep, its glowing patterns brighter than ever. It didn't attack the humans. Instead, it joined the assault against the chaotic one, releasing focused sonar bursts that hit like cannons. The two giants clashed in the water, creating waves that could have sunk fleets. The humans didn't run. They wove between the titans, supporting the older creature with precision attacks, stabilizing their structures, and redirecting the chaotic creature's fury. For the alien council, watching this was unthinkable. They were witnessing humans fight alongside a being that their ancestors had only feared. Suddenly, the pulse from the ruins reached a peak. A brilliant beam of blue light shot upward from the ocean floor, piercing through the water and into the storm clouds above. The chaotic creature roared louder, thrashing wildly. The older guardian creature tried to hold it back, but the energy pouring from below was overwhelming. On the base, instruments overloaded. Power flickered. The sonar screens filled with static. Marco shouted over the alarms, "It's activating something. This isn't just a creature fight, it's part of the awakening." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Then we finish this now." She ordered the submarines to focus their sonic cannons on the creature's weak points, areas they had mapped during the earlier battles. The wave riders synchronized their pulses, creating intersecting shockwaves that pinned the creature in a vulnerable position. The older guardian struck one final thunderous blast that cracked through the chaos like a hammer on stone. The chaotic creature released a long, guttural sound. It wasn't victory or rage, it was pain. Its glowing patterns dimmed. Slowly, it sank back toward the abyss, retreating into the trenches from where it had come. The water calmed slightly, though the deep pulse continued. Cheers erupted across the base. They had done what no one else had even attempted, fought and driven back one of the ocean's greatest terrors. The alien council fell into stunned silence, but Elena didn't celebrate. She stared at the blue beam still rising from the ruins. The creature was gone, but the real threat was just beginning. "The Leviathan," Leon whispered, reading the old alien texts that had been partially translated from the carvings. "This was only the herald. The real one is coming." Elena looked toward the horizon where the beam met the dark clouds. The crew followed her gaze, understanding without needing words. They had won a battle, but the ocean had not surrendered. Far below, deeper than any human had ever reached, something vast stirred. The ruins shifted. Stones moved. A massive shape began to rise slowly, like a mountain awakening from a long slumber. The humans tightened their defenses. The storm above started to spin faster again. The pulse grew louder, deeper, and older. Something ancient was coming, and humanity was waiting for it. The ocean grew unnaturally still. The wind died, the lightning faded, and even the relentless pulse from the ruins seemed to hold its breath. Across the floating base, humans paused their work and listened. The silence felt heavy, like the calm inside the eye of a storm. Sonar operators stared at their screens as one massive shape began to rise from far below. It was unlike anything they had ever recorded. Its size exceeded the largest creature's profile by miles. The alien council feeds flickered with panic. Some believed what was rising wasn't alive but a part of the planet itself. Commander Elena stood at the edge of the deck, rain dripping down her face, staring into the dark sea. She could feel the vibrations through the metal under her boots. It wasn't a single pulse anymore. It was a rhythm, ancient and powerful, as if the heart of Thalassia 9 had finally awakened. Her crew gathered behind her, silent but ready. No one spoke of retreat. They all knew the moment had come. The sonar operator whispered, "Contact," rising fast. Beneath them, the water bulged outward as if something massive pressed against the underside of the ocean. The bulge grew, spreading across the horizon. The clouds above swirled into a single giant vortex, pulling wind and lightning into its center. Then, with a sound that was neither roar nor quake but something deeper, the Leviathan emerged. Its head alone was the size of a city. Its glowing lines were ancient and steady, like runes carved by time itself. Massive fins cut through the waves, creating rolling walls of water that spread in every direction. Its eyes glowed with intelligent light, not wild like the chaotic creatures, but knowing. It rose slowly, deliberately, until its enormous form loomed over the entire base like a living mountain. Across the galaxy, alien leaders watched in complete silence. No fleet had ever survived this moment in their history. Legend spoke of the Leviathan as the final test, the will of the ocean made flesh. It did not simply destroy fleets, it judged intruders. And humanity was the first species to face it and remain standing. The creature released a sound unlike anything before, a long, low resonance that vibrated through the structures, the water, and the very air. Every light on the base flickered. Some crew covered their ears as their bones rattled from the inside. Yet Elena stood firm. She understood, even without translation, that this was not a mindless attack. This was communication. Leon stepped forward, eyes wide. "It's not roaring, it's speaking." The Leviathan's glow pulsed in rhythmic patterns. Sonar translated fragments into readable signals. It wasn't a language in the usual sense, but a pattern that spoke through vibration and water movement. The message was clear. "Why are you here?" Elena placed her hand on the deck rail, grounding herself. She gave a single command: reply. Using sonar emitters, the base sent out a steady response, a calm, rhythmic sequence they had developed during the previous creature encounters. It wasn't perfect, but it conveyed intent. "We are explorers. We seek to understand, not to destroy." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Leviathan lowered its massive head until its glowing eyes were level with the base. Waves surged, but the humans held steady. A deep sound echoed again. Not aggressive, but questioning, testing. It swept through their structures like a tide searching for weakness. The defense towers swayed, the platforms strained, but everything held. The humans didn't flinch or fire. They stayed still, answering strength with patience. Then the chaotic creature returned, rising from the trenches like a wounded predator, furious and desperate. It lunged toward the base, thrashing wildly. Before the humans could react, the Leviathan moved with breathtaking speed. One colossal fin struck the water, creating a tidal wave that hurled the chaotic creature away. A single resonant pulse from the Leviathan froze the smaller creature mid-charge. Then, with a slow, almost regretful motion, it forced the intruder back into the depths. The humans watched in awe. The Guardian had judged the intruder and cast it out. Now it turned its gaze fully upon them. The Alien Council expected destruction. Every piece of their recorded history pointed to annihilation at this point. Fleets had fired weapons, tried to cage or flee, and were crushed for their arrogance. Humanity did neither. They stood firm, lights glowing like stars against the endless Black Sea. Refusing to attack, refusing to kneel. Elena stepped forward, close enough that the spray from the Leviathan's breath soaked her uniform. She raised her hand slowly, not as a threat but as a greeting. It was a small gesture, but the entire crew held their breath. The Leviathan lowered its massive head closer. For a moment, human and ancient creature stared at each other through storm and silence. Then, with a deep resonant sound, its glowing lines shifted into a new pattern. The pulse translated through the sonar. "Welcome." The vortex above began to dissolve. Lightning faded. The waves lowered. The deep pulse changed from warning to steady rhythm, like the heartbeat of a calm sea. The Leviathan sank slowly back beneath the surface, its enormous body disappearing into the depths like a mountain retreating into shadow. For the first time in recorded history, the awakening did not end in death. It ended in acknowledgement. Across the base, cheers broke out. Crew members hugged, shouted, and cried in relief. Harris fell to his knees, laughing through exhaustion. Marco leaned against a railing, wiping the rain from his face, whispering, "We did it." In alien council chambers light years away, silence filled the rooms. Generations of fear and legend had just been shattered. A new entry would have to be written in their history, the day the humans arrived on the drowning world and did not drown. Elena stood quietly, looking out at the now calm sea. She knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something larger. Humanity had not conquered Thalassia 9. They had been accepted by it. Weeks later, construction expanded. The floating base grew into a thriving colony. Alien species who once feared the planet began sending envoys, curious to learn from humans how they had survived the awakening. The ocean remained powerful and dangerous, but now it had guardians, both ancient and human. At night, children played on the decks under calm skies, their laughter echoing over the water. Sometimes, if the sea was quiet enough, a massive glowing shape could be seen far below, watching peacefully. The Leviathan was still there. It always would be. The galaxy's story about Thalassia 9 had changed forever. It was no longer a death world. It had become a symbol of courage, adaptability, and something only humans had shown: the ability to face fear and meet it with understanding instead of retreat. And so the legend spread, not of a doomed fleet, but of the day humans came to the water world, dove into its heart, and made the ocean itself acknowledge their place among the stars.